In Christian and Islamic tradition, the Seven Sleepers of Ephesus, Arabic, Ashbikaf, Companions of the Cave, is the story of a group of youths who hide inside a cave outside the city of Ephesus around 250 AD to escape a religious persecution and emerge 300 years later. The earliest version of this story comes from the Syrian bishop Jacob of Sarug, which is itself derived from an earlier Greek source, now lost. An outline of this tale appears in Gregory of Tours, and in Paul the Deacon's History of the Lombards. The best-known Western version of the story appears in Jacobus the Virgine's Golden Legend. The Roman Martyrology mentions the Seven Sleepers of Ephesus under the date of 27th of July, June according to Second Vatican calendar. The Byzantine calendar commemorates them with feasts on 4th of August and 22nd of October. The story appears in the Quran 18 numbers Surah Kahf, verse 9 to 26, as thus is important to Islam. The Quranic story does not state the number of sleepers Surah 18, verse 22. It also gives the number of years that they slept as 300 solar years, equivalent to 309 lunar years. The Islamic version includes mention of a dog who accompanied the youths into the cave and appears to keep watch. In Islam, these youths are referred to as the people of the cave. The story says that during the persecutions by the Roman Emperor Decius, around 250 AD, 7 young men were accused of following Christianity. They were given some time to recant their faith, but chose instead to give their worldly goods to the poor and retire to a mountain cave to pray, where they fell asleep. The emperor, seeing that their attitude towards paganism had not improved, ordered the mouth of the cave to be sealed. Headstones in the Siebensley-Furkirche, Rothof, Germany. Decius died in 251 AD. And many years passed during which Christianity went from being persecuted to being the state religion of the Roman Empire. At some later time, usually given as during the reign of 2nd Theodosius 408 AD to 450 AD, the landowner decided to open up the sealed mouth of the cave, thinking to use it as a cattle pen. He opened it and found the sleepers inside. They awoke, imagining that they had slept but one day, and sent one of their number to Ephesus to buy food, with instructions to be careful lest the pagans recognize and seize him. Upon arriving in the city, this person was astounded to find buildings with crosses attached. The townspeople for their part were astounded to find a man trying to spend old coins from the reign of Decius. The bishop was summoned to interview the sleepers. They told him their miracle story, and died praising God. The various lives of the 7 sleepers in Greek are listed at Bibliotheca Hagiographica Graeca 1593 to 1599, and in other non-Latin languages at Bibliotheca Hagiographica Orientalis 1013 to 1022. As the earliest versions of the legend spread from Ephesus, an early Christian catacomb came to be associated with it, attracting scores of pilgrims. On the slopes of Mount Pion, Mount Coelion, near Ephesus, near modern Selçuk in Turkey, the Grotto of the 7 Sleepers with ruins of the church built over it was excavated in 1927–28. The excavation brought to light several hundred graves dated to the 5th and 6th centuries. Inscriptions dedicated to the 7 Sleepers were found on the walls of the church and in the graves. This grotto was still shown to tourists. The story appeared in several Syriac sources before Gregory's lifetime. It was retold by Simeon Metaphorastes. The 7 Sleepers formed the subject of a homily and verse by the Odessan poet Jacob of Sarug, died 521 AD, which was published in the Acta Sanctorum. Another 6th century version, an Assyrian manuscript in the British Museum, Cat. Seer. MSS. p. 1090, gives 8 sleepers. There are considerable variations as to their names. The story rapidly attained a wide diffusion throughout Christendom, popularized in the West by Gregory of Tours, in his late 6th century collection of miracles, De Gloria Martyrum, Glory of the Martyrs. Gregory says that he had the legend from a certain Syrian. In the following century, Paul the Deacon told the tale in his History of the Lombards but gave it a different setting. In the farthest boundaries of Germany toward the west-northwest, on the shore of the ocean itself, a cave is seen under a projecting rock, where for an unknown time 7 men repose wrapped in a long sleep. Their dress identified them as Romans, according to Paul, and none of the local barbarians dared to touch them. During the period of the Crusades, bones from the sepulchres near Ephesus, identified as relics of the 7 sleepers, were transported to Marseille, France in a large stone coffin, which remained a trophy of the Abbey of Saint Victor, Marseille. The 7 sleepers were included in the Golden Legend compilation, the most popular book of the later Middle Ages, which fixed the precise date for the resurrection, 478 AD, in the reign of Theodosius. The account had become proverbial in 16th century Protestant culture. The poet John Donne could ask, "Were we not weaned till then? But sucked on country pleasures, childishly? Or snorted we in the 7 sleepers den?" John Donne, The Good Morrow. In John Haywood's play called The 4pp. 1530s, The Pardoner, a Renaissance update of Chaucer's Pardoner, offers his companions the opportunity to kiss a slipper of one of the 7 sleepers, but the relic is presented as absurdly as the Pardoner's other offerings, which include a great toe of the Trinity and a buttock bone of Pentecost. Little is heard of the 7 sleepers during the Enlightenment, but the account revived with the coming of Romanticism. The Golden Legend may have been the source for retellings of the 7 sleepers in Thomas de Quincey's Confessions of an English Opium Eater, in a poem by Goethe, Washington Irving's Rip Van Winkle, H. G. Wells's The Sleeper Awakes. It also might have an influence on the motif of the King in the Mountain. Mark Twain did a burlesque of the story of the 7 sleepers in Chapter 13 of Volume 2 of The Innocents Abroad. Serbian writer Anilokis retells the story of the 7 sleepers in the short story, The Legend of the Sleepers, in his book The Encyclopedia of the Dead. Italian author Andrea Camilleri incorporates the story in his novel The Terracotta Dog. The 7 sleepers appear in 2 books of Susan Cooper's The Dark is Rising series, Will Stanton awakens them in The Great King, and in Silver on the Tree they ride in the last battle against the dark. The 7 Sleepers series by Gilbert Morris takes a modern approach to the story, in which 7 teenagers must be awakened to fight evil in a post-nuclear apocalypse world. John Buchan refers to the 7 sleepers and the 3 hostages, where Richard Hannay surmises that his wife Mary, who is a sound sleeper, is descended from one of the 7 who has married one of the foolish virgins. The Persian, Dutch writer Kader Abdullah gives his own interpretation of the Islamic version of the story. See below, in the 2000 book Spijkerschrift, English trans. 2006 My Father's Notebook, based on the writer's experience and the left-wing opposition to both the Shah's regime and the Islamic Republic. The book includes extensive quotations from the Quran's account. At its end, the narrator's sister and fellow activist escapes from prison and, together with other escaped political prisoners, hides in a mountain cave in North Iran, where they will sleep until Iran is free of oppression. Turkish author Orhan Pamuk alludes to the story, more specifically through the element of the dog, in the chapter I Am a Dog in his 2001 novel, My Name is Red. The story of the companions of the cave is referred to in 18 number Surah Al-Kahf, verses 9 to 26. According to Muslim scholars, God revealed these verses because the people of Mecca challenged Muhammad with questions that were passed on to them from the Jews of Medina in an effort to test his authenticity. They asked him about young men who disappeared in the past, about a man who traveled the earth from east to west, Zul-Qarn, and about the soul. The story parallels the Christian version, recounting the story of a group of young believers who resisted the pressure from their people and/or king to worship others beside God, and took refuge in the cave, following which they fell asleep for a long time. When they woke up, they thought that they had slept for only a day or so, and they sent one of them back to the city to buy food. His use of old silver coins revealed the presence of these youths to the town. Soon after their discovery, the people of the cave, as the Quran calls them, died, and the people of their town built a place of worship at the site of their burial, the cave. The Quran does not give their exact number. It mentions that some people would say that they were 3, others would say 5, and some would say 7, in addition to one dog, and that they slept for 300 years, plus 9, which could mean 300 solar years or 309 lunar years. 300 solar years are equal to 309 lunar years. The Quran emphasized that their number is known only to God and a few people. It is also explained by Islamic scholars that even after what is told in Quran, if people probe more, do not argue, and that the issues of number of men and years in the cave is not important, rather the wisdom or the lessons, including resurrection, that can be learned from it. Muslims firmly believe in the story as it is mentioned in the Quran, however the location of the cave is not mentioned. Some allege that it is in Ephesus, Turkey. Others cite a place filled with carved sarcophagi from the late Roman and Byzantine periods, called the Cave of Seven Sleepers in the village of Rajib south of Amman, Jordan. Other Muslims even suggest Tuqajam, Turpan is the location of the cave, because they believe that place matches the Quran's description. The dates of their alleged sleep are also not given in the Quran. Some allege that they entered the cave at the time of Decius, 250 AD, and they woke up at the time of First Theodosius, 378 to 395 AD, or Second Theodosius, 408 to 450 AD, but neither of these dates can be reconciled with the Quran's account of sleeping 300 or 309 years. Some Islamic scholars, however, assert that the 300 or 309 years mentioned in the Quran refers to periods of time alleged by those telling the tale, rather than a definitive statement by Allah as to how long they were actually there, or this difference can be of solar and lunar years. In southern Tunisia, a masjid of Chenina is called Masjid of the Seven Sleepers, Masjid al-Rakud al-Sabah, where the sleepers are allegedly buried. In the surroundings of the masjid, some uncommonly large tombs, about 4 meters long, are visible. It is a popular belief that during their long sleep they did not stop growing, so when they woke up they had become giants. Other Tunisian places where the Seven Sleepers cave is located are Mides, Tolzer, El Aoudiane, Al Adayan, and Tulalat. According to the traveler Abu Salim al-Yashi, 17th century, The place where they lie is a mountain over the village of Dagak, which he calls Dakius. Another place where popular beliefs locate the seven sleepers is Usfan, in Kabylia, Algeria, where a legend collected by Auguste Mliras speaks of 7 shepherds who fled into a cave trying to escape the persecution of Decius, and slept 40 years there. According to this version, they did not realize that their sleep was so long, but a baker did, since they tried to pay him with an old coin, and decided to get back to sleep. Accordingly, they are reputed to be still sleeping, in a bush difficult to reach, an hour's walk east of Usfan. Their dog, watching over them, can be heard barking by passers-by. A mosque of the 7 sleepers also exists in the Algerian village of Njes, Ours, but here the legend is somewhat modified, since the tradition speaks of 7 people living there in historical times, who mysteriously disappeared and were miraculously found asleep many years later by the pious Sidi Qasim, who consequently ordered that a mosque be built in that place. It should be noted, however, that the mosque itself incorporates some columns of Roman age, with 2 inscriptions mentioning Trebonianus Gallus, the successor of Decius. Another interpretation is based on the earlier legend of Joseph of Arimathea having come to Glastonbury, and the cave has been identified